I would say that I don't think we've ever been stingy with the way we do things. We're more than happy to share our mentality and our approach to efficient gains, because that's another service we like to offer to our clients is don't just let us do it for you, let us show you how we do it. And I would say we're very interactive in our classes. It's a very dynamic approach. There's a framework of the curriculum, but it's not a hard, fast framework that we can't deviate from. And so much of that's driven by the feedback you're getting from the student base. But ultimately, when we're quoting classes and prescribing a curriculum for a client, it's really client to client. A Designing with Surfaces class for one client, client A, is not necessarily going to be the exact same class delivered for client B.
You're teaching manufacturing, you're teaching processes, you're teaching everything down to how the tool works.
Right.
You're not stopping with, hey, this is what button you're going to have to push, and this is what button you're supposed to push.
You've got to think more in the context of, I'm producing a manufacturable design. I'm producing geometry. It happens to be with this particular tool, but I got to think of explaining to a student in class, this is how you would do it with, and once again, I think this is what differentiates us from other people. This is how you do it using Creo, but this is why you're doing it, for the purposes of good geometry.
When I train an entry-level engineer, I think there's more to it than classroom training. What do you feel like the best way to learn the software? I mean, you came from ground zero just recently, 5 years ago, to developing cab interiors.
I think really you can't learn what we know in a book. So it's really working with an experienced modeler, looking at their models, like going through what they've worked on to understand how they ended up starting from the beginning and coming to like a final product. So kind of like breaking down their thought process.
If it's not in the context of a class, we have a strong mentorship program where we put young people next to experienced guys, and it's kind of the watch over the shoulder mentality and see, the questions you're asking, the things that are critical for you in the context of finding a solution and working towards a solution and letting somebody experience that firsthand, because like you said, you're not going to learn this stuff in a book. You're going to learn it through an apprenticeship type relationship and watching people who have done it do it.
I think one of the hardest parts is developing the understanding of how to build a robust model. And so how do you design for that flexibility? And like, what do you expect to change? And so like with that experience,
just the order of how those operations stack together and keeping your model tree organized so that it's, if you're in the middle of a 500 feature model and you've got to go back to feature 50 and modify some things, and then you start working back through it. If it's organized and it's well thought up front, then it's easier to manipulate as things change.
I think another key to the things that we've introduced in terms of our training and mentorship, not only the evaluation of existing models, but one thing that I like to do when I'm teaching, especially the younger person or someone with less experience, is I don't even want to have an idea of what it is you're trying to create until you ask the question. So in other words, if I'm teaching a class, I'll say, bring some examples in and don't let me see the models before the class. Or bring some pictures of models and don't let me see them before you get to the class. Because what I want to happen is, I want you to watch my thought process of how I'm going to construct that model. And so a newer, less experienced modeler watching the
wheels turn
and asking myself questions, and how would I do that? And I may change direction a few times. That's a very productive way of letting that young modeler see how I do it, but also gain confidence and realize experience doesn't necessarily mean you don't change your mind 4 or 5 times before you head down the path to getting the thing done. But ultimately to try to share with this upcoming new generation of engineers an efficient way to do it. That's only going to make our jobs easier as we continue to assist clients, because you spoke earlier of the common language we all recognize in our models, the ability to pass models around and know what to expect. If there's consistency across the board in industry doing that, we all gain from it.